Your mind is secretly working against you right now, but you're about to discover how to flip its hidden switches and become truly unstoppable. Your transformation begins as you learn the exact neural keys that will unlock your mind's full potential. Flipping the Switch. Audiobook Introduction. You're standing at the edge right now. Your heart pounds against your chest, your breath catches, and that familiar voice whispers, "Not yet. Not today. Maybe tomorrow." It's the same voice that's held you back countless times before. At job interviews, important presentations, crucial conversations, or life-changing decisions. But what if I told you this resistance isn't your enemy? That same force holding you back contains the raw power to propel you forward, once you know how to flip its switch. People have transformed their lives in moments once they understood this simple truth. Your mind's resistance is pure energy, waiting to be redirected. Like a light switch that's been wired backward, it's not broken. It's just connected incorrectly. Every day you let mental blocks persist costs you opportunities, relationships, and achievements that should be yours. Your mind isn't just holding you back. It's keeping you from the life you're meant to live. Inside this audiobook, you'll discover how to turn your biggest mental blocks into your greatest assets. You'll learn to access the same psychological triggers that Olympic athletes use to break world records and entrepreneurs use to build empires. This isn't about fighting your mind. It's about finally understanding how to use it. Chapter 1. The Biology of Breakthrough. Your hands tremble as you clutch the presentation notes. The conference room feels like it's closing in, each breath becoming shorter than the last. In 10 minutes, you'll stand before the executive team, your chance to finally showcase your vision, to prove your worth. But right now, your body seems to be working against you. Heart racing, palms sweating, thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. This moment, this very sensation of your body preparing for perceived danger, isn't your weakness. It's your hidden superpower, waiting to be unleashed. What you're experiencing isn't failure. It's your brain's most sophisticated success mechanism operating exactly as designed. The problem isn't the response, it's how you're interpreting it. Your brain's threat response system is arguably the most advanced piece of survival equipment ever evolved. It's kept our species alive through ice ages, predator encounters, and countless life-or-death situations. This same system now activates when you face a challenging presentation or a crucial conversation. It's not broken. It's just applying Stone Age solutions to modern-day challenges. The breakthrough comes when you understand that this response system isn't just about survival. It's about thriving. Every sensation you're feeling right now is your body mobilizing resources, sharpening your focus, and preparing you for peak performance. The key lies not in fighting these responses, but in redirecting them. Thomas Edison's journey to creating the light bulb perfectly illustrates this principle. During his quest to develop a working electric light, Edison famously failed over 1,000 times. When a reporter asked him how it felt to fail 1,000 times, Edison's response changed the course of innovation history. "I have not failed 1,000 times. I have successfully discovered 1,000 ways that will not work." Edison's brain was doing exactly what yours does before a big presentation, firing warning signals about potential failure. But instead of letting these signals paralyze him, Edison rewired their meaning. Each failed attempt wasn't a threat to his self-worth. It was data. His anxiety about potential failure became curiosity about potential discovery. The same neural pathways that could have triggered avoidance became the fuel for persistence. This neural reframing wasn't just positive thinking. It was a fundamental rewiring of his threat response system. Every time his brain signaled danger of failure, Edison's conscious reinterpretation transformed that signal into opportunity for discovery. Over time, his brain began making this translation automatically. The power of this approach lies in its simplicity. You don't need to eliminate the response. You just need to redirect it. Your racing heart? That's extra oxygen being pumped to your brain for sharper thinking. Sweaty palms? Your body cooling itself for optimal performance. Butterfly sensation in your stomach? Your system diverting energy to where it's needed most. When you understand these responses as performance enhancers rather than warning signals, everything changes. The key is learning to recognize these patterns in real time and consciously redirect them toward productive outcomes. Take Aaron, a small business owner who had built a successful local cafe but felt paralyzed at the thought of expansion. Every time an opportunity for growth presented itself, his threat response system would kick in. Heart racing, mind flooding with worst-case scenarios, body tensing as if preparing for physical danger. Instead of fighting these responses, Aaron learned to recognize them as his brain's way of preparing for important action. He started keeping a small notebook, jotting down his physical sensations whenever they appeared. Rather than labeling them as anxiety, he documented them as expansion signals, his body's way of saying something important was on the horizon. When a prime location became available for his second cafe, the familiar sensations returned. But this time, instead of interpreting them as warning signs, he recognized them as his success mechanism activating. His racing thoughts weren't telling him to stop. They were generating scenarios he needed to consider. His heightened awareness wasn't anxiety. It was his brain sharpening its focus on crucial details. Aaron used this redirected energy to methodically analyze the opportunity, channel his heightened focus into detailed planning, and transform his physical activation into productive action. Within 6 months, his second location was outperforming the first, and he had developed a reliable system for turning his threat response into a growth catalyst. Your brain's response system is equally sophisticated, equally powerful, and equally ready to be redirected. The key lies in first developing awareness of these patterns without trying to change them. Like a scientist observing a natural phenomenon, you need to understand your neural responses before you can redirect them. Here's your challenge for the next 24 hours. Become a neural detective. Carry a small notebook or use your phone's Notes app. Each time you notice your body's threat response activating, whether it's before a meeting, during a difficult conversation, or facing an important decision, document 3 things. The situation that triggered the response, the physical sensations you experience, the immediate thoughts that arise. Don't try to change anything yet. Simply observe and document. This awareness is the first step in transforming your threat response into your success mechanism. Tomorrow, these same signals that now feel like obstacles will become your most reliable indicators of opportunity. Chapter 2. Beyond Motivation. The Power of Systems. You're staring at your reflection again, making the same promise you've made countless times before. This time will be different. The gym membership card sits heavy in your hand, a plastic reminder of past failures, each one beginning with fierce determination and ending in familiar defeat. Your motivation, once burning bright, has flickered and faded like so many times before. The cycle is painfully familiar. A surge of inspiration strikes, and suddenly, everything seems possible. You dive in with passionate intensity, convinced that this overwhelming drive will last forever. But then reality hits. The alarm rings earlier than your enthusiasm. The tasks feel harder than your resolve. And slowly, inevitably, your motivation begins to crack under the weight of everyday life. Here's what nobody tells you about motivation. It's designed to fail. Your brain literally cannot maintain heightened states of inspiration and drive indefinitely. It's like trying to sprint a marathon, physiologically impossible and strategically flawed. The problem isn't your willpower, your character, or your desires. The problem is that you're relying on a finite resource for an infinite game. This revelation becomes crystal clear when we examine the early career of Stephen King, long before he became a household name. In the early 1970s, King was working as a high school janitor, living in a double-wide trailer with his wife and 2 young children. The family was so poor that they couldn't afford a telephone. King's writing desk was wedged between the washing machine and the dryer in their laundry room. What's remarkable isn't just the humble beginnings, it's what happened in that makeshift office every single morning. King would wake up at 5 a.m., long before his janitorial shift began, and write for exactly 2 hours, not when he felt inspired, not when the muse struck, every single morning. During this period, he wrote Carrie, the novel that would launch his career, on an old typewriter balanced on his knees. The conventional wisdom would suggest waiting for motivation, for that perfect moment when inspiration strikes and words flow effortlessly. But King did exactly the opposite. He built a system that operated independently of his emotional state. Whether he felt creative or drained, inspired or blocked, the system remained the same. Wake up, sit down, write. This wasn't just about discipline or forcing himself to work. King had discovered something fundamental about how the brain operates. It responds to patterns more reliably than emotions. By creating a consistent system, same time, same place, same duration, he bypassed the need for motivation entirely. His brain learned to enter writing mode automatically, triggered by the familiar routine, rather than waiting for inspirational lightning to strike. The power of this approach lies in its alignment with your brain's natural operating system. Your neural pathways strengthen through repetition, not intensity. It's why you can drive home on autopilot or tie your shoes without thinking. These actions have become systemized in your brain through consistent repetition, not through moments of intense motivation. This brings us to Maggie, a talented artist whose work was as sporadic as her inspiration. She'd produce brilliant pieces during bursts of creativity, then go weeks without touching a brush when motivation waned. Her dream of making a living from her art seemed to drift further away with each inconsistent month. Maggie's breakthrough came when she stopped treating her art practice like a motivation-dependent activity and started approaching it like brushing her teeth, something you do regardless of how you feel about it. She created what she called her studio trigger sequence. Every day at 7 p.m. she would make a cup of specific herbal tea, put on the same instrumental playlist, and sit at her workspace for at least 30 minutes. The first week was uncomfortable. Her mind resisted, craving the familiar rush of inspiration. But she stuck to the system, understanding that she was building neural pathways rather than waiting for motivation. By week 2, something remarkable started happening. Her brain began anticipating the creative session, automatically shifting into art mode when the familiar triggers appeared. Within 3 months, Maggie had produced more work than in the previous year combined. More importantly, the quality of her work improved because she was practicing consistently rather than sporadically. Her art evolved from motivation-dependent bursts to a sustainable practice, leading to her first solo exhibition and eventually a steady stream of commissioned work. The key distinction in both King's and Maggie's stories isn't their talent or even their dedication. It's their understanding that sustainable success comes from systems, not sporadic inspiration. They built their success on reliable patterns rather than unreliable emotions. This approach works because it aligns with your brain's fundamental operating principles. Your neural pathways don't care about your motivation levels. They respond to consistent patterns and clear triggers. When you create a system, You're essentially programming your brain to perform regardless of your emotional state. Think about how you brush your teeth. You don't wait for motivation. You don't need inspiration. You've created such a strong neural pathway around this habit that it feels strange not to do it. This same principle can be applied to any goal you're pursuing. The transformation begins when you shift your focus from cultivating motivation to building systems. Instead of trying to force yourself to feel motivated, start creating patterns that trigger desired behaviors automatically. This isn't about eliminating motivation. It's about making it irrelevant to your success. Chapter 3: Hidden Switches: Unlocking Your Success Code. Think back to your greatest recent success, that moment when everything clicked, when you performed at a level that surprised even yourself. Maybe it was nailing that presentation you thought would break you. Perhaps it was finally having that difficult conversation you'd been avoiding for months. Or it could have been something as simple as maintaining your composure when everything around you was chaos. Now here's what you didn't realize. In that moment of triumph, you unconsciously flipped a powerful mental switch. Without knowing it, you activated one of your brain's most potent psychological triggers. The same mechanisms that usually hold you back suddenly propelled you forward. The question isn't whether you have these switches. It's learning how to flip them at will. Your brain operates on a complex network of psychological triggers, each one capable of transforming your performance in an instant. These aren't mystical concepts or motivational abstractions. They're neurological mechanisms that determine whether you rise to challenges or retreat from them. Understanding how to manipulate these switches gives you unprecedented control over your responses, actions, and ultimately, your outcomes. Elon Musk's journey provides a fascinating window into how these mental switches operate. Long before he revolutionized multiple industries, Musk faced severe bullying in his South African school years. The torment culminated in an incident where a group of boys pushed him down a flight of stairs, leaving him hospitalized. Most people would have internalized this trauma, allowing it to install permanent limitations in their psyche. But Musk discovered something crucial about his mental switches during his recovery. Instead of accepting the narrative of victimhood, Musk began systematically breaking down his challenges using first principles reasoning, a method of analyzing situations by stripping them down to their fundamental truths. This wasn't just a coping mechanism. It was his first experience with consciously flipping his mental switches. When faced with seemingly insurmountable problems, most people's brains automatically flip into what neuroscientists call the threat response switch, triggering fear, doubt, and avoidance. Musk learned to redirect this same neural circuitry toward problem solving. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he began asking, "What are the fundamental elements of this situation, and how can they be reconfigured?" This mental switch flipping became his signature approach. When experts said private space travel was impossible, instead of accepting conventional wisdom, he broke down the cost of rocket materials and found they constituted only 2% of conventional launch prices. When automotive industry veterans insisted electric cars couldn't be viable, he dismantled every assumption about battery technology and vehicle design. The key insight from Musk's story isn't his exceptional intelligence or resources. It's his mastery of mental switch flipping. He learned to consciously redirect his brain's natural responses toward productive channels. The same neural pathways that could have led to perpetual victimhood instead became catalysts for innovation. Your brain has these same switches. Every time you've overcome a significant challenge, you've unconsciously activated them. The difference between consistent high performers and occasional achievers isn't their innate capabilities. It's their ability to consciously control these psychological triggers. Think how this played out in Jake's transformation from social anxiety to confident public speaking. As a software developer, Jake's technical skills were exceptional, but his anxiety about speaking up in meetings was holding back his career. Every time he considered sharing an idea, his brain would flip into what neuropsychologists call the internal focus switch, an overwhelming awareness of his own discomfort, racing heart, and perceived inadequacies. Jake's breakthrough came when he learned about attention direction switches, the brain's ability to rapidly shift focus from internal to external stimuli. Rather than trying to eliminate his anxiety, a common mistake that usually intensifies it, he learned to flip his attention switch toward his audience's needs instead of his own discomfort. He developed a simple trigger. Whenever he felt anxiety rising, he would consciously ask himself, "What does this person need to understand?" This question automatically flipped his mental switch from internal judgment to external focus. The same physiological responses that once paralyzed him, increased heart rate, heightened awareness, became energy he could channel into more engaging presentations. Within 3 months, Jake went from avoiding team meetings to leading technical presentations for potential clients. The transformation wasn't about becoming a different person. It was about learning to flip his existing switches in productive ways. This pattern of switch flipping appears consistently across all forms of achievement. Whether in sports, business, relationships, or personal growth, success often hinges not on learning new skills, but on learning to redirect your brain's existing mechanisms. Your challenge for this week is to become a detective of your own success. Choose 3 significant achievements from your life, times when you performed exceptionally well. For each success, document the physical sensations you experienced, where your attention was focused, how you interpreted the challenge, who you saw yourself as in that moment. This investigation will reveal your personal pattern of switch flipping, creating a blueprint for future success. Don't worry about changing anything yet, just observe and document. Understanding your switches is the first step to mastering them. Chapter 4. Fear is Fuel. Transforming Anxiety into Achievement. Your heart is pounding, your palms are slick with sweat, your breath comes in short, shallow bursts. Most people would call these the symptoms of fear, but they're not symptoms at all. They're signals of your body preparing for extraordinary performance. That racing pulse? It's oxygen-rich blood rushing to your muscles and brain. Those sweaty palms? Enhanced grip sensitivity for precise action. That rapid breathing? Your system ramping up to operate at peak capacity. What you've always interpreted as your body betraying you is actually your biology preparing you for greatness. The sensations you've labeled as anxiety are identical to those experienced by Olympic athletes before breaking world records, by entrepreneurs before closing million-dollar deals, and by performers before their breakthrough moments. The only difference is in how they've learned to interpret and channel this energy. Think about it. Your body doesn't know the difference between fear and excitement at a physiological level. The racing heart, the surge of adrenaline, the heightened awareness, these responses are neutral. You're the one who decides whether they represent danger or opportunity. This isn't positive thinking, it's neurological fact. The same biological responses that can paralyze you with fear can also propel you to peak performance. The key isn't calming yourself down or trying to eliminate these sensations. It's learning to harness them as the powerful energy source they truly are. This is where most self-help advice gets it wrong, telling you to breathe deeply, to relax, to try to settle your nerves. But what if those nerves are exactly what you need? Richard Branson's journey provides a masterclass in transforming fear into fuel. Long before he built the Virgin Empire, Branson struggled with severe dyslexia and debilitating anxiety about public speaking. For most people, these challenges would have been legitimate reasons to avoid the spotlight. Instead, Branson made a revolutionary discovery about fear's energy. Rather than trying to overcome his fear of public speaking through traditional methods like breathing exercises or visualization, Branson took a different approach. He noticed that his dyslexia had taught him something crucial about fear. When faced with written words he couldn't process, he developed the ability to find creative workarounds. He applied this same principle to his fear of public speaking. Instead of viewing his racing heart and sweaty palms as problems to solve, he began treating them as signals that his body was charging up for optimal performance. He didn't just accept these sensations, he actively sought them out. Every time he felt that surge of fear before a presentation, he would silently acknowledge it. This is my body preparing me for impact. This shift wasn't just psychological, it was neurological. By reframing his fear response as preparation rather than warning, Branson literally rewired his brain's threat detection system. The same physiological responses that once triggered avoidance became signals that he was about to do something meaningful. This approach transformed his public speaking from a source of dread into a strategic advantage. While other business leaders delivered polished but predictable presentations, Branson's authentic, energized style, fueled by what was once debilitating anxiety, became his trademark. His nervous energy evolved into the dynamic presence that would help him build one of the world's most recognizable brands. But here's what's crucial to understand. Branson didn't become fearless. He became fear-fluent. He learned to read his body's signals not as warnings to stop, but as indicators that he was pushing into territory worth exploring. This same principle applies to every area where fear holds you back. The science behind this transformation is fascinating. When you encounter a fear-triggering situation, your amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, initiates what neuroscientists call the threat response cascade. This releases a cocktail of hormones including adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine. Most people interpret these as anxiety, but elite performers have learned to recognize them as performance enhancers. This is exactly what Daniel, a marketing strategist, discovered when he transformed his presentation anxiety into his greatest professional asset. Like many professionals, Daniel would break into a cold sweat at the mere thought of presenting to clients. His heart would race, his mouth would go dry, and his hands would shake. Classic fear responses that he interpreted as signs of inadequacy. Everything changed when Daniel learned about the biology of fear. Instead of fighting his body's response, he began to work with it. Before presentations, rather than trying to calm down, he would say to himself, "My body is charging up. These sensations mean I'm about to do something important." He developed a simple but powerful protocol. When he felt fear's energy building, he would acknowledge the sensation. "I feel my heart racing." Reframe it as preparation. "My body is energizing me." Channel it into action. "This energy will make my delivery more dynamic." The transformation was remarkable. Within 3 months, Daniel went from dreading client presentations to actively seeking speaking opportunities. His nervous energy became known as passionate enthusiasm. Clients who once sensed his anxiety now commented on his engaging presence. The key wasn't that Daniel became a different person. He simply learned to redirect his fear's energy rather than resist it. The same physiological responses that once undermined his confidence became the fuel for his success. This pattern repeats across all forms of achievement. Whether in business, athletics, relationships, or personal growth, breakthrough moments often come not from eliminating fear, but from learning to harness its energy. Think about your own experiences. Those moments when you've pushed through fear to achieve something meaningful. Wasn't the fear's energy part of what made the achievement possible? Your challenge now is to begin your own fear fluency training. Within the next 24 hours, identify your smallest fear. Something that makes you slightly uncomfortable but isn't overwhelming. It might be speaking up in a meeting, sending that email you've been postponing, or having a minor difficult conversation. When you encounter the fear response, notice the physical sensations in detail. Silently acknowledge, This is my body energizing me for action. Take immediate action while the energy is present. Don't try to calm down. Don't wait until you feel ready. Use the energy of the moment to propel you forward. Remember, those sensations aren't warning signs. They're your body's way of preparing you for exceptional performance. Chapter 5. The Momentum Method, Engineering Unstoppable Progress. Think back to your last moment of pure flow, that magical state where everything clicked into place. Time seemed to bend, doubt disappeared, and progress felt effortless. You weren't questioning your abilities or second-guessing your decisions. You were simply moving, creating, achieving. That wasn't just a good day or lucky timing. You had accidentally tapped into one of the most powerful forces in human psychology: momentum. Most people spend their lives waiting for motivation to strike, or trying to force themselves into action through sheer willpower. But what if the secret isn't about pushing harder or wanting it more? What if sustainable success comes from understanding how to engineer momentum itself? The science of momentum reveals something fascinating about your brain. When you're in motion, your neural pathways actually reconfigure themselves to support continued action. It's like a mental equivalent of Newton's first law. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. But here's the crucial part. This same principle works in reverse. The longer you stay still, the more your brain adapts to inertia. This is why starting feels so hard, but once you're moving, maintaining progress becomes increasingly natural. Your brain literally rewires itself to support whatever state you're in, stagnation or momentum. The key isn't forcing yourself to take massive action. It's understanding how to trigger the momentum effect through strategic micro-movements. Colonel Harlan Sanders' story provides a masterclass in engineering momentum from a standstill. At age 65, when most people are settling into retirement, Sanders found himself essentially starting from zero. His previous business had failed, and he was living on a $105 monthly Social Security check. But instead of accepting defeat, Sanders understood something crucial about momentum that would transform not just his life, but the entire fast food industry. Rather than trying to launch a massive restaurant chain immediately, Sanders focused on perfecting one thing: his chicken recipe. He understood that momentum doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from small, consistent actions that compound over time. He drove from restaurant to restaurant, cooking his chicken for owners and their employees. Each demonstration, whether successful or not, taught him something new about his recipe and his pitch. The key wasn't that Sanders never faced rejection. He reportedly heard no 1,009 times before getting his first yes. The brilliance was in how he used each rejection to build momentum rather than lose it. Every no refined his approach slightly. Every demonstration, even the failed ones, made him more confident in his process. He wasn't just trying to sell a recipe. He was building an unstoppable force through persistent micro-actions. What's particularly fascinating about Sanders' approach was his understanding of psychological momentum. Instead of letting each rejection deplete his energy, he treated them as data points. Each no brought him statistically closer to a yes. This mental reframing meant that even apparent setbacks contributed to his forward motion. The result? Kentucky Fried Chicken became a global empire, not because Sanders made one perfect move, but because he mastered the art of converting small actions into unstoppable momentum. By the time he sold the company in 1964, KFC had over 600 franchised outlets. The same man who was living on Social Security at 65 became a multimillionaire by understanding how to engineer momentum from nothing. This principle of engineered momentum isn't just for business ventures. Your brain operates on the same mechanisms whether you're building a company, learning a skill, or transforming a habit. The key is understanding how to trigger the momentum effect in your specific situation. The neuroscience behind this is remarkable. When you take action, your brain releases dopamine. not just after you succeed, but in anticipation of success. This creates a biological feedback loop that makes continued action easier. The smaller and more achievable your initial actions are, the more likely you are to trigger this success spiral. Lauren, a graphic designer, discovered this principle when she found herself stuck in a cycle of starting projects but never finishing them. Her portfolio was filled with half-completed designs, and her confidence was eroding with each abandoned project. The traditional advice, set bigger goals, push harder, want it more, only made things worse. Everything changed when Lauren learned about engineered momentum. Instead of trying to force herself to complete entire projects, she broke her work into micro-actions so small they seemed almost trivial. Her new rule was simple. Open her design software and adjust one single element. That's it. No pressure to do more. What she discovered was revolutionary. Once she was in motion, continuing felt natural. That single adjustment often turned into hours of focused work. By removing the pressure of completion and focusing solely on initiating momentum, she transformed her productivity. Within 6 months, she had completed more projects than in the previous 2 years combined. Lauren's breakthrough came from understanding 3 key principles of momentum. The first action must be so small it feels ridiculous to resist. Opening her software for just one adjustment bypassed her brain's threat response. Each small win creates a slight dopamine release, making the next action easier. Success breeds success, even at a microscopic level. Momentum builds on itself exponentially. The energy required to keep moving is far less than the energy needed to start. She created what she called her momentum map, a document that broke every project into micro-actions so small they couldn't trigger resistance. Instead of complete client website, her first task might be open new project file. That's it. By the time she'd completed that tiny action, the momentum effect often carried her forward naturally. This same principle applies to any area where you feel stuck. Want to start exercising? Your first action isn't running a mile, it's putting on one running shoe. Want to write a book? Don't start with a chapter. Start with opening a blank document. The key is making the initial action so small that your brain's resistance system doesn't activate. Think about the goal that's been eluding you, the one that feels too big, too daunting, or too complex to tackle. Now imagine reducing that goal into the smallest possible action, something so tiny, it feels almost meaningless. That's your momentum trigger. Chapter 6. Reprogramming your mental scripts. From self-sabotage to self-empowerment. Stop listening for a moment. Take out a piece of paper. Write down the last 3 thoughts you had about yourself today. Not the sanitized version you'd share with others, the raw, unfiltered commentary running through your mind. Those quiet whispers of doubt, those harsh self-judgments, those limiting beliefs you've carried for so long they feel like truth. Look at what you wrote. Really look at it. Those thoughts feel solid, don't they? Like unchangeable facts about who you are. But here's something that will transform how you see yourself. Those thoughts are nothing more than outdated software running on the world's most sophisticated hardware, your brain. Your mind is continuously running scripts, automatic patterns of thought that shape your reality. These scripts weren't chosen by you. They were installed through past experiences, other people's expectations, and moments of vulnerability. But just like any software, these mental programs can be updated, debugged, and even completely rewritten. The science of neuroplasticity has revealed something extraordinary. Your brain physically restructures itself based on your dominant thought patterns. When you repeat certain thoughts, you're literally carving neural pathways that make those thoughts your default setting. The good news? You can consciously redirect this process to create new, empowering mental scripts. J.K. Rowling's journey provides a masterclass in mental script rewriting. In 1993, she found herself at what she later described as rock bottom, a divorced single mother living on welfare in Edinburgh, struggling with depression and feeling like a complete failure by every conventional measure. Her internal dialogue was dominated by harsh self-criticism and doubt. But what makes Rowling's story remarkable isn't just her eventual success. It's how she consciously rewrote her mental narrative during her darkest moments. Instead of letting her circumstances define her identity, she made a crucial psychological shift. She reframed her rock bottom as a foundation. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life, she later reflected. This wasn't just positive thinking, it was strategic mental reprogramming. Rowling began to consciously intercept her automatic thoughts of failure and replace them with a different narrative. Her status as an unemployed single mother on welfare wasn't evidence of failure. It was proof she was surviving against odds. Her stripped-down life wasn't a tragedy. It was freedom from distractions to focus on what truly mattered: her writing. The magic of Rowling's approach wasn't that she denied her challenges. She acknowledged them fully, but she refused to let them write her internal script. When her mind whispered, "You're a failure," she rewrote that script to, "You're gathering material for an incredible comeback story." When doubt said, "This will never work," she replaced it with, "This is exactly where I need to be to create something extraordinary." This mental reprogramming didn't just help her cope. It fundamentally altered how she approached her work. The Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers, but Rowling's rewritten mental scripts allowed her to see each rejection as proof she was in the game, not evidence she should quit. Her new internal narrative transformed waiting times between rejections from periods of anxiety into opportunities to refine her work. The result wasn't just literary success. It was a complete transformation of her self-concept. By consciously rewriting her mental scripts, Rowling didn't just create Harry Potter. She recreated herself. The same brain that once convinced her she was a failure became the architect of one of the most successful literary franchises in history. Understanding how to rewrite your mental scripts isn't just about positive thinking. It's about strategic psychological reprogramming. Your brain is constantly running these scripts in the background, shaping your decisions, actions, and ultimately your results. The key is learning to identify these scripts and consciously upgrade them. Ryan, a first-generation college graduate working in corporate finance, discovered this principle when facing severe imposter syndrome. Every meeting with senior executives triggered an automatic script. "You don't belong here. They're going to realize you're not qualified. Your background isn't good enough." Instead of trying to silence these thoughts, which only made them louder, Ryan learned to identify them as outdated programming. He began to study his mental scripts like a scientist, noting when they appeared and what triggered them. A crucial pattern emerged. His background, which his imposter syndrome painted as a weakness, was actually providing unique insights his colleagues missed. Ryan developed what he called his script flip technique. Every time his mind ran the "you don't belong here" program, he consciously activated a new script. "My different perspective is exactly why I need to be here." When his brain suggested, "They'll realize you're not qualified," he countered with, "They'll benefit from my unique way of seeing things." The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was profound. Within 6 months, Ryan's rewritten scripts weren't just helping him cope. They were actively contributing to his success. His ability to see problems from angles his privileged colleagues missed led to innovative solutions. The very background that his old scripts labeled a liability became his greatest asset. This same principle applies to any limiting mental script you're running. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's simply running the programs it believes will keep you safe. But you can consciously install new software that serves you better. The process begins with awareness. Your mental scripts are like background apps running on your phone. They're consuming energy and influencing performance, but you rarely notice them until you stop to check. The thoughts you wrote down at the beginning of this chapter, those are just the ones you caught. Dozens more are running silently, shaping your reality without your conscious awareness. Here's your challenge. For the next 24 hours, become a script detective. Each time you notice a self-limiting thought, write it down. Don't try to change it yet. Just document it. Note when it appears, what triggers it, and how it makes you feel. Then, next to each old script, write a new version that serves your growth. Be specific and realistic. This isn't about denying reality. It's about choosing a more empowering interpretation of it. This isn't just an exercise. It's the beginning of a fundamental upgrade to your mental operating system. Your brain is waiting for new instructions. What will you program it to believe? Chapter 7. Building Unshakable Self-Trust, Your Hidden Foundation of Power. Think back to that moment. You know the one. That time when you did something you thought was impossible. Maybe it was nailing that presentation everyone said was too ambitious. Perhaps it was finally standing up to that toxic relationship. Or possibly it was something as simple as getting up at 5 a.m. when you'd convinced yourself you weren't a morning person. Whatever that moment was, freeze it in your mind. Feel it again. The surge of power. The electric realization that you were capable of more than you imagined. That wasn't just success you felt. It was self-trust in action. And here's what most people miss. That self-trust wasn't created by the achievement. It was there all along, quietly waiting to be activated. Your brain is hardwired for self-trust. It's not something you need to create. It's something you need to uncover. Like a muscle that's grown weak from disuse, your natural capacity for self-trust hasn't disappeared. It's simply been buried under layers of doubt, past disappointments, and other people's expectations. The neuroscience is clear. Every time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, your brain releases a cascade of neurochemicals that strengthen your self-trust circuitry. Each small win literally rewires your neural pathways, building a stronger foundation for future success. But here's the crucial part. These pathways don't distinguish between big and small victories. Your brain registers every kept promise to yourself as evidence of your reliability, whether it's making your bed in the morning or launching a company. Michelle Yeoh's journey provides a masterclass in rebuilding self-trust from the ground up. In 1995, at the height of her action film career, she suffered a devastating back injury that doctors said would end her ability to perform stunts. The physical pain was excruciating, but the psychological impact was even more severe. She had lost trust in her own body, the very instrument that had defined her career. Instead of accepting this new limitation, Yeoh began a methodical process of rebuilding self-trust through what she called micro-victories. She started with basic movements, not the spectacular kicks and flips she was known for, but simple stretches and controlled motions. Each successful movement became evidence that her body could still be trusted. The genius of Yeoh's approach wasn't in pushing herself to the limit. It was in creating a systematic ladder of small challenges that each built upon the last. She didn't jump straight back into complex stunts. Instead, she progressed through carefully calculated stages, each success reinforcing her self-trust. This methodical approach served her well beyond physical recovery. When transitioning from action roles to dramatic acting, Yeoh applied the same principle of progressive self-trust building. She took on increasingly challenging dramatic roles, each success adding another layer to her confidence. This culminated in her Academy Award win at age 60 for Everything Everywhere All at Once, a role that combined both her physical capabilities and dramatic depth. Every time I doubted myself, Yeoh later reflected, I would remember how I rebuilt myself after the injury. It wasn't about believing I could do everything. It was about proving to myself step by step that I could do the next thing in front of me. This principle of progressive self-trust building isn't just for movie stars. It's a fundamental mechanism of human psychology. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence to support or contradict your beliefs about yourself. When you consistently show up for yourself in small ways, you create a powerful feedback loop that strengthens your self-trust muscle. Carlos, a third-year medical resident, discovered this principle during his surgical rotation. Despite excellent technical skills, his hands would shake during procedures due to overwhelming self-doubt. The more he focused on the shaking, the worse it became, creating a vicious cycle of diminishing self-trust. Instead of trying to eliminate the doubt all at once, Carlos created what he called his trust ladder. He started with procedures he knew he could handle flawlessly, simple sutures and basic examinations. Each successful procedure, no matter how minor, was logged in his evidence journal. The key to Carlos's approach wasn't just tracking successes. It was breaking down complex procedures into smaller components he could master individually. Before attempting a challenging surgery, he would practice each movement separately until it became automatic. This methodical approach allowed him to build trust in specific capabilities rather than trying to tackle everything at once. As his evidence journal grew, Carlos noticed something remarkable. The shaking began to diminish, not because he was less nervous, but because he had built a strong enough foundation of self-trust to counter the doubt. When uncertainty crept in during complex procedures, he could mentally reference his track record of successful smaller steps. Within 6 months, Carlos had transformed from the resident who doubted every move to one of the most reliable hands in his program. The change wasn't just in his surgical performance. His entire approach to challenges had shifted. He had learned that self-trust isn't an all-or-nothing proposition. It's built through consistent, progressive evidence gathering. This same principle applies to any area where you want to strengthen your self-trust. Your brain doesn't need grand gestures. It needs consistent evidence that you can rely on yourself. Each time you honor a commitment to yourself, no matter how small, you're laying another brick in your foundation of self-trust. The process begins with identifying your current trust zone, the areas and activities where you already demonstrate reliable self-trust. These might be so automatic you don't even notice them. Perhaps you always respond to important emails within 24 hours, or never miss a payment deadline, or consistently show up on time for appointments. These existing areas of self-trust are your launching pad. They prove that you already have the capacity for reliable self-leadership. You just need to expand it systematically into new territories. Here's your challenge. Create your personal trust ladder for the next week. Start by identifying 3 things you already do consistently. These are your baseline of proven self-trust. Then, design 3 slightly more challenging actions that build upon these existing strengths. The key is to make these new challenges small enough to be achievable but significant enough to feel meaningful. Write these 6 items down in order, from most comfortable to most challenging. For the next 7 days, focus on executing the first 4 items consistently. Don't worry about the final 2 yet. They're there to remind you that there's always room for growth, but your immediate focus is on building evidence through consistent wins. Document each successful completion, no matter how small it seems. Remember, your brain doesn't distinguish between small and large victories when building self-trust. It only cares about consistent evidence that you do what you say you'll do. This isn't just an exercise. It's the beginning of rewiring your brain's trust circuitry. Every small win is another neural pathway strengthening your foundation of self-trust. What will you prove to yourself this week? Chapter 8. Mastering Laser Focus. The Art of Undistracted Achievement. Your thumb hovers over the screen, muscle memory already pulling you toward that familiar cycle of apps. Email, social media, messages, news, repeat. You've checked your phone 12 times in the past hour. You know because some part of your brain has been keeping count, even as another part tries to focus on the important work in front of you. That awareness you're feeling right now? That's not guilt. That's not weakness. That's your brain's executive function sending you a powerful signal, one that most people misinterpret as failure. In reality, this moment of recognition is the first step toward mastering what neuroscientists call directed attention, your brain's most powerful tool for achievement. Your capacity for focus isn't diminishing. It's simply untrained. Like a muscle that's been neglected, your attention system is waiting to be strengthened through deliberate practice. The neural pathways responsible for sustained attention are incredibly plastic, meaning they can be reshaped and strengthened at any age. Each time you consciously redirect your attention from distraction to focus, you're literally rewiring your brain's circuitry. Arnold Schwarzenegger's journey provides a fascinating window into the power of cultivated focus. While most people know him for his achievements in bodybuilding, acting, and politics, few realize that he built a multi-million-dollar real estate empire before his Hollywood career even began. What's remarkable isn't just the diversity of his achievements, it's how he managed to pursue them simultaneously without letting any area suffer. In 1974, while training for Mr. Olympia and taking acting classes, Schwarzenegger was also orchestrating complex real estate deals. He revealed in his autobiography that his secret wasn't superhuman ability, it was his system of compartmentalized focus. Rather than trying to multitask, he divided his day into unbreakable focus blocks. When I was training, the gym was my universe, he explained. When I was studying scripts or taking acting classes, that was all that existed. When I was analyzing real estate opportunities, I became a businessman with no other concerns. This wasn't just a scheduling technique. It was a complete mental shift into different modes of thinking. Schwarzenegger's approach wasn't about fighting distraction. It was about making focus so compelling that distraction became irrelevant. During his training blocks, he wouldn't even answer the phone. During his real estate analysis time, he would completely immerse himself in market research and financial calculations. This wasn't just discipline. It was strategic use of his brain's natural capacity for deep engagement. The key insight from Schwarzenegger's method wasn't the time management. It was his understanding that focus is a state that must be entered deliberately. He created specific environmental and mental triggers for each type of work, effectively training his brain to switch into different focus modes on command. This principle of state-dependent focus is something your brain is already equipped for. You just need to learn how to activate it intentionally. Think about how your attention naturally sharpens during a crisis or when you're deeply engaged in something you love. That's not coincidence. It's your brain's natural focus mechanism in action. The science of attention reveals that your brain has two distinct networks, the task-positive network, TPN, and the default mode network, DMN. The TPN activates during focused attention, while the DMN is active during mind-wandering. The key to mastering focus isn't about suppressing the DMN, it's about strengthening your ability to engage the TPN at will. Jenna, a freelance designer, discovered this principle when her scattered approach to work was threatening her business. She found herself constantly switching between projects, checking emails, and responding to client messages, a pattern that was destroying her productivity and creativity. Instead of trying to force herself to focus harder, Jenna redesigned her work environment and schedule around her brain's natural focus patterns. She created what she called focus triggers, specific environmental cues that signaled to her brain it was time for deep work. Her morning routine became ritualistic, clearing her desk except for project materials, putting on specific instrumental music, and using a red light on her desk that signaled focus mode to her brain. These weren't just productivity hacks. They were psychological triggers, training her brain to enter a focused state on command. The most powerful part of Jenna's system wasn't the external triggers. It was her understanding of focus as a progressive skill. She started with 25-minute focused sessions, gradually extending them as her attention stamina increased. Within 3 months, she could maintain deep focus for 90-minute stretches, transforming her output and the quality of her work. The game changer, Jenna noted, was realizing that focus isn't about fighting distraction. It's about making the important thing so engaging that distractions lose their power. She began treating each focus session as a form of mental training, not just work time. This same principle applies to your brain's focus mechanisms. Each time you consciously engage in focused work, you're not just completing tasks, you're strengthening your brain's attention networks. The key is to start where you are, not where you think you should be. Your focus muscles are ready to be trained. Right now, in this moment, you have everything you need to begin this transformation. The challenge is simple but powerful. Create your ideal focus environment for 1 hour of completely undistracted work. Choose a specific location. Remove every possible distraction. Phone in another room, notifications off, clear workspace. Select one important task that deserves your complete attention. Set a timer for 1 hour and commit to staying with that single task until the timer sounds. This isn't just about productivity. It's about proving to yourself that you can take control of your attention. Document how it feels, what you achieve, and what you learn about your focus patterns. This is your first step in mastering the art of undistracted achievement. What will you accomplish in your hour of laser focus? Chapter 9. The Hidden Power of Failure. Your Breakthrough in Disguise. Think back to your most crushing failure. Not the small setbacks or minor disappointments, but that one moment that felt like it shattered everything. The project that imploded. The relationship that ended. The business that failed. The dream that slipped away. Hold that moment in your mind, because what you're about to discover will transform how you see it forever. That pit in your stomach when you recall that failure. It's not just emotional residue. It's your brain's way of marking something significant. A neural flag that says, "Pay attention here." What most people don't realize is that this sensation isn't a warning to retreat. It's your brain's built-in system for catalyzing breakthrough. When you experience failure, your brain enters a unique state of heightened neuroplasticity. Research in cognitive neuroscience reveals that moments of significant setback actually trigger increased activity in the brain's learning centers. Your neural networks become more malleable, more ready for rewiring than at almost any other time. In other words, your moments of greatest failure are literally your moments of greatest potential for transformation. Steve Jobs' journey provides a masterclass in how to leverage this neurological phenomenon. In 1985, at just 30 years old, Jobs was publicly fired from Apple, the company he had co-founded in his garage. The press gleefully documented his humiliation. His identity as a tech visionary seemed shattered. By all conventional metrics, this was a catastrophic failure. But Jobs' response to this setback reveals the hidden mechanics of strategic resilience. Instead of retreating or trying to replicate his past success, he used this period of neuroplasticity to explore entirely new directions. He purchased a small computer graphics division from Lucasfilm, which would eventually become Pixar. He founded Next, a computer company that would develop technologies that would later become crucial to Apple's resurrection. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, Jobs later reflected. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. What Jobs intuitively understood was that failure doesn't just create opportunity, it creates optimal conditions for innovation. The very state of being stripped of certainty forces the brain to form new neural pathways, to consider possibilities that success would have made invisible. During his wilderness years away from Apple, Jobs didn't just start new ventures. He developed new ways of thinking. He immersed himself in design principles at Next that would later revolutionize Apple's aesthetic. He learned storytelling through Pixar that would transform how he presented products. Each apparent setback was actually expanding his mental models in ways that would prove invaluable. When Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, he wasn't the same leader who had left. His failure had forged him into something more powerful, a visionary who understood not just technology, but human experience, storytelling, and design. Under his renewed leadership, Apple didn't just recover. It revolutionized personal computing, music, mobile phones, and digital entertainment. The key insight from Jobs' journey isn't just about persistence. It's about understanding how failure creates unique conditions for breakthrough. Your brain's response to failure isn't a bug. It's a feature designed to facilitate transformation. Kevin's story illustrates how this principle works in practice. After pouring 3 years and his life savings into a promising tech startup, Kevin watched it collapse when a key partnership fell through. The failure felt total. He had lost not just money, but credibility in his industry. Instead of retreating from entrepreneurship, Kevin did something counterintuitive. He started methodically documenting everything that had gone wrong. Not from a place of self-criticism, but with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying data. He created what he called a failure map, a detailed analysis of every decision, assumption, and oversight that had contributed to his startup's collapse. This process wasn't just therapeutic. It was rewiring his brain's response to failure in real time. Each insight he extracted became a building block for his next venture. He discovered that his original startup had failed primarily because he had tried to solve too many problems at once, spreading his resources too thin. Using this insight, Kevin launched his next venture with laser focus on a single, well-defined problem in the industry he now knew intimately. He built in all the safeguards his failure map had revealed were necessary. Within 2 years, this new company had surpassed all the metrics his failed startup had been chasing. The failure wasn't the end of the story, Kevin reflected. It was the beginning of a better one. Every mistake became a lesson in what actually works. My failed startup taught me more about building a successful business than any success could have. Your brain is already equipped with this same capacity for failure-driven growth. The key is learning to engage with failure actively, rather than passively. When you approach failure as a data point rather than a dead end, you activate your brain's natural learning mechanisms. Your challenge now is to transform your most significant failure into a launchpad for growth. Take your biggest perceived failure and map it out completely. What specific lessons does it contain? What assumptions did it challenge? What new possibilities did it reveal? Create a detailed failure map like Kevin did, extracting every possible insight. Then, identify 3 specific actions you can take in the next week to begin leveraging these insights. Don't just reflect, act. Your brain's failure response system is primed for action right now. What will you build from the foundation this failure has created? Chapter 10. Building Your Excellence Autopilot, Making Breakthrough Automatic. Watch a master gymnast execute their Olympic routine. Notice how every movement flows with perfect precision, each element transitioning seamlessly into the next. There's no hesitation, no visible mental effort, just pure fluid excellence in motion. Now imagine bringing that same level of automatic mastery to your chosen field. That feeling of everything clicking into place, of excellence becoming your default state, isn't reserved for elite athletes. It's a neural capability you already possess. When you see that level of mastery, you're witnessing more than just practice. You're seeing a brain that has automated excellence. The difference between conscious competence and unconscious excellence lies in how deeply these patterns are embedded in your neural pathways. This isn't about mindless repetition. It's about strategic neural programming that turns peak performance into your natural state. Your brain is constantly building automated processes. Every time you drive a car, type on a keyboard, or perform any familiar task without conscious thought, you're experiencing the power of neural automation. The key insight is that this same mechanism can be deliberately harnessed to automate excellence in any domain. Roger Federer's journey to tennis mastery illuminates how this process works at the highest level. While many focus on his natural talent, the real story lies in his systematic approach to automating excellence. Early in his career, Federer struggled with emotional outbursts and inconsistent performance. His technique was impressive, but his excellence wasn't automatic. What transformed Federer from a talented but erratic player into a model of consistent excellence was his understanding of neural automation. He developed what he called his quiet mind approach, breaking down every element of his game into programmable components. Each serve, each backhand, each footwork pattern was practiced not just for technical proficiency, but for neural integration. Federer's practice sessions weren't about mindless repetition. He would deliberately vary the speed, angle, and pressure of each shot while maintaining perfect form. This variety forced his brain to build more robust neural pathways, creating what neuroscientists call flexible automation, excellence that adapts automatically to changing conditions. Most revealing was his pre-point routine. Federer developed a precise sequence of movements and breath patterns that automatically reset his nervous system between points. This wasn't just a superstition. It was a carefully engineered trigger that activated his excellence autopilot. By the time he reached his peak, these patterns were so deeply embedded that he could maintain championship-level play even under extreme pressure. The ball becomes bigger, time slows down, and you're in complete control, Federer described of his automated excellent state. But this doesn't happen by accident. It's built point by point, practice by practice, until excellence becomes your only option. The key insight from Federer's approach isn't about tennis. It's about how excellence becomes automatic through systematic neural programming. Your brain is already equipped with this same capacity for automated mastery. The difference lies in how deliberately you engage this natural process. Sophia's journey as an architect demonstrates how these principles work in a professional context. 3 years into her career at a prestigious firm, she found herself constantly second-guessing her designs. Despite her strong technical skills, she spent hours overthinking every decision, creating a bottleneck in her work and undermining her confidence. Rather than trying to think her way out of overthinking, Sophia applied the principles of neural automation. She broke down her design process into distinct components and created specific routines for each phase. For initial concept development, she established a first light routine, arriving at the office early, spending exactly 30 minutes sketching without judgment, followed by a 5-minute review period. For detailed design work, she developed what she called her flow sequence, a specific order of operations that moved from broad strokes to fine details, each step triggering the next automatically. She even created environmental triggers, using different music playlists to activate different modes of design thinking. Most importantly, Sophia built in what she called calibration points, brief moments throughout the day where she would consciously check her work against established standards, then return to automated excellence. This wasn't about perfection. It was about creating reliable pathways to peak performance. Within months, Sophia's productivity doubled. Her designs became more innovative and cohesive, not because she was trying harder, but because she had automated her excellence. "I'm not thinking about designing anymore," she explained. "I'm just designing. The excellence happens automatically. The transformation in Sophia's work wasn't magic. It was methodical neural programming. She didn't eliminate thought. She elevated it to a higher level by automating the fundamentals. This same process is available to you in any field. Your brain is already running automatic programs throughout your day. The question is whether these programs are serving your excellence or limiting it. By understanding how neural automation works, you can begin reprogramming these patterns to support peak performance. The key is to start with small, specific routines that you can execute consistently. Don't try to automate everything at once. Choose one critical activity in your field and break it down into its component parts. What are the essential elements that, if automated, would most improve your performance? Chapter 11. The Decision Matrix, Turning Choices into Power. Every second of your day is punctuated by decisions. The alarm rings, snooze or rise. The coffee machine hums, regular or extra shot. Your phone buzzes, respond now or later. Each choice, no matter how small, is either reinforcing or weakening your mental operating system. Right now, as you hear these words, your brain is making thousands of micro-decisions that shape your reality. These constant choices aren't just administrative tasks. They're opportunities to strengthen or weaken your neural pathways. When you consistently choose the path of growth, even in tiny moments, you're not just making decisions. You're programming your brain for excellence. The inverse is equally true. Each time you choose comfort over growth, you're reinforcing patterns that keep you stuck. Think about the last major decision you made. Notice how your mind cycled through possibilities, weighing options, perhaps even creating anxiety through endless analysis. Now imagine having a systematic approach that turns this mental cycling into clear, confident action. This isn't about eliminating uncertainty. It's about transforming it into a catalyst for growth. The science of decision-making reveals something fascinating. Your brain doesn't distinguish between big and small choices in terms of energy expenditure. Whether you're deciding what to eat for lunch or whether to change careers, your brain activates similar neural pathways. This means every decision is an opportunity to strengthen your mental operating system. Jeff Bezos' journey with Amazon provides a masterclass in strategic decision-making. In 1994, Bezos was thriving on Wall Street, secure in a high-paying position at D.E. Shaw. When he encountered data showing the Internet's explosive growth, 2,300% per year, he faced a pivotal decision: stay in his comfortable role or venture into the unknown world of online retail. Instead of getting caught in endless pro-con lists, Bezos developed what he called the regret minimization framework. He projected himself mentally to age 80, looking back on his life. From this perspective, he asked himself which choice he would regret not taking. The framework cut through the noise of short-term concerns and focused on long-term impact. What's particularly revealing about Bezos' approach wasn't just the framework itself, but how he used it to transform uncertainty into clarity. He didn't try to eliminate all risks or answer every question. Instead, he created a decision-making system that aligned with his core values and long-term vision. This system turned the paralyzing "what if" into the energizing "why not?" The framework led him to leave his secure job, move across the country, and start Amazon in his garage. But the real power of his decision-making system showed in the years that followed. When faced with crucial choices about expansion, investment, or new ventures, Bezos consistently returned to his framework, using it to make bold moves that others considered foolish, like investing heavily in infrastructure during the dot-com crash. Most decisions should probably be made with somewhere around 70% of the information you wish you had, Bezos later explained. If you wait for 90%, in most cases you're probably being slow. This insight reveals a crucial truth about decision-making. It's not about achieving certainty, but about having a reliable system for moving forward under uncertainty. Your brain is already equipped with sophisticated decision-making machinery. The key is learning to direct this machinery toward growth rather than protection. This isn't about making perfect choices. It's about making choices that perfect your mental operating system. Lucas's story demonstrates how this principle works in practice. As the owner of a successful local bakery, he found himself paralyzed by decisions about expansion. Should he open a second location, invest in new equipment, hire more staff? Each choice seemed to spawn endless questions and scenarios. The turning point came when Lucas realized his decision paralysis wasn't from lack of information. It was from lack of system. He developed what he called his growth grid, a simple but powerful decision matrix based on 3 questions. Does this choice align with my core values? Does it push me beyond my current comfort zone? Can I break it down into smaller, testable steps? Instead of trying to predict every outcome, Lucas focused on whether each decision would strengthen his decision-making muscle. He started small, applying his matrix to daily operational choices. Should he try a new supplier? Growth grid. Consider a new product line? Growth grid. Each application of the system built his confidence in making bigger decisions. The real breakthrough came when facing the expansion decision. Rather than trying to make one perfect choice, Lucas used his matrix to break the decision into smaller experiments. He tested extended hours first, then weekend pop-ups in potential new locations, then temporary partnerships with other businesses. Each small decision built evidence and confidence for the larger ones. Within 18 months, Lucas had not only opened a successful second location, but had developed a franchise model, something he wouldn't have even considered in his previous decision-paralyzed state. The decisions didn't get easier, he explained, but I got stronger at making them. The key insight from Lucas's transformation wasn't that he made perfect choices, but that he built a system that turned each decision into an opportunity for growth. His growth grid wasn't just a decision-making tool, it was a mental strengthening program. Your challenge now is to create your own decision matrix. Take a moment to identify your 3 core values, the principles that matter most in your life and work. These become the foundation of your matrix. Next, think about your growth edge. Where do you want to push beyond your current limitations? Finally, see how you can test decisions in small steps before making major commitments. Over the next 24 hours, apply your matrix to every significant decision you face. Don't worry about getting it perfect. The goal is to start building the habit of systematic decision-making. Notice how each choice feels different when filtered through your personal framework. You're not just making decisions. You're strengthening your mental operating system, one choice at a time. What decision have you been postponing that needs your attention right now? Chapter 12. The Energy Code. Unleashing Your Hidden Power Reserves. Think back to your most energized moment today. That surge of clarity, that feeling of unstoppable momentum, that sense that anything was possible. Now contrast it with your lowest point. When your mind felt foggy, your decisions became sluggish, and even simple tasks seemed to require Herculean effort. The gap between these 2 states isn't just a mood swing. It's a measure of your untapped potential. Most people treat their energy like a fixed resource, something they're at the mercy of rather than in control of. They accept the peaks and valleys as inevitable, riding the waves of productivity when they come and suffering through the lows when they hit. But your mental energy isn't a fixed resource. It's a dynamic system waiting to be optimized. The science of mental energy reveals something remarkable. Your brain consumes roughly 20% of your body's energy while representing only 2% of its mass. This disproportionate energy usage isn't a design flaw. It's a feature that can be leveraged. When you understand how to manage this energy consumption, you unlock levels of performance you didn't know were possible. Satya Nadella's transformation of Microsoft offers a masterclass in strategic energy management. When he took over as CEO in 2014, Microsoft was struggling with a toxic culture and declining relevance in the tech world. The company's energy was being drained by internal competition and rigid thinking patterns. Instead of pushing for immediate results through brute force, Nadella approached the challenge through the lens of energy management. He recognized that the company's problem wasn't a lack of talent or resources. It was inefficient use of its collective mental energy. Nadella implemented what he called energy-aware leadership. He started by eliminating energy-draining practices like forced rankings and internal competition. He introduced regular periods of reflection and learning, understanding that mental energy, like physical energy, requires recovery periods to maintain peak performance. His approach was systematic. Rather than demanding constant high performance, he created rhythms of intense focus, followed by deliberate recovery. He encouraged employees to identify their peak energy periods and schedule their most important work during these times. Meetings were restructured to align with natural energy patterns, rather than arbitrary schedules. The results were transformative. Microsoft's market value tripled under his leadership, but more importantly, the company's culture shifted from energy-draining competition to energy-optimizing collaboration. Nadella demonstrated that managing mental energy isn't just about individual performance, it's about creating sustainable systems for excellence. But here's what's particularly relevant about Nadella's approach. He didn't just manage energy, he engineered it. He understood that mental energy isn't something that happens to you. It's something you orchestrate. This same principle applies to your personal performance. Your brain operates on specific energy cycles throughout the day. These cycles aren't random. They're predictable patterns that can be mapped and optimized. The key isn't to fight against these cycles, but to align your activities with them. Rebecca's journey from burnout to sustainable high performance illustrates how this principle works in practice. As the founder of a promising tech startup, she initially approached her work with the typical startup mentality: constant hustle, minimal rest, and a belief that exhaustion was a badge of honor. The results were predictable. Despite working longer hours, her productivity declined. Creative solutions that once came easily now felt forced. Decision-making became increasingly difficult. She was caught in the classic trap of confusing activity with productivity. The turning point came when she realized she was treating her mental energy like an infinite resource rather than a renewable one that needed strategic management. She began by tracking her energy patterns throughout the day, noting when she felt most alert, creative, and focused. What she discovered surprised her. Her peak creative energy came in the early morning, but she had been spending those hours on administrative tasks. Her analytical thinking was sharpest in the late afternoon, yet she'd been trying to do her most creative work then. Rebecca developed what she called her energy architecture, a systematic approach to aligning tasks with her natural energy patterns. She scheduled creative work like product development and strategy sessions during her morning peak. Administrative tasks were moved to mid-afternoon when her energy naturally dipped. Important decisions were made during her late afternoon analytical peak. But the most crucial change was her introduction of strategic recovery periods. Instead of pushing through energy dips with caffeine and willpower, she incorporated short renewal breaks throughout the day. These weren't just random breaks. They were carefully timed to coincide with her natural energy valleys. The results were remarkable. Not only did her productivity increase, but the quality of her work improved dramatically. Her team noticed the difference and began adopting similar practices. Within 6 months, the company's output had increased while working hours actually decreased. The biggest revelation, Rebecca later explained, wasn't learning how to work harder. It was learning how to work in harmony with my brain's natural rhythms. Your brain is already equipped with sophisticated energy management systems. The key is learning to work with these systems rather than against them. This isn't about pushing harder. It's about becoming smarter with how you use your mental resources. Observe how your own energy fluctuates throughout the day. There are times when complex problems seem to solve themselves, when creativity flows effortlessly, when decisions come with clarity and confidence. These aren't random occurrences. They're windows of optimal brain function that can be identified and leveraged. Your challenge for the next week is to become a scientist of your own energy patterns. Create a simple energy log with 3 daily check-ins: morning, afternoon, and evening. Rate your mental energy on a scale of 1 to 10 and note what you're doing during your peaks and valleys. Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe and document. Pay particular attention to times when thinking feels effortless, periods when creativity flows naturally, moments when decision-making is clearest, points when focus becomes difficult. At the end of the week, use this data to design your optimal performance schedule. Align your most important tasks with your peak energy periods. Schedule routine tasks during your natural valleys. Most importantly, build in strategic recovery periods to maintain your mental stamina. This isn't just about productivity. It's about revolutionizing your relationship with your mental energy. When you learn to work with your brain's natural rhythms rather than against them, you unlock levels of performance you didn't know were possible. What patterns will you discover about your mental energy this week? Chapter 13: Success Triggers: Decoding Your Achievement DNA. Take a moment to count your significant achievements from the past month. Now expand that to the past year. The number might surprise you. Perhaps it's lower than you'd like, or maybe it exceeds your expectations. But here's the revelation that changes everything. That same number of achievements isn't just possible in a single week. It's probable once you understand how to activate your success triggers. Most people treat success like lightning, a powerful but random force that strikes without warning or pattern. They chalk up their achievements to luck, timing, or circumstance. But success isn't random. It's systematic. Your brain has already created a precise blueprint for achievement, hidden in the neural patterns of your past successes. Think of your brain as a sophisticated success laboratory. Every time you achieve something meaningful, your neural networks record not just the outcome, but the exact conditions that led to that success. These conditions, your success triggers, are like hidden switches waiting to be flipped. When activated in the right sequence, they create an unstoppable chain reaction of achievement. The science behind success triggers reveals something fascinating. Your brain doesn't distinguish between conscious and unconscious factors in success. It records everything: your physical state, your environment, your thought patterns, even subtle environmental cues you weren't aware of. This comprehensive recording becomes your personal success template, ready to be decoded and replicated. Howard Schultz's journey from the housing projects of Brooklyn to building Starbucks into a global empire provides a masterclass in identifying and activating success triggers. Growing up in poverty, Schultz observed how his father, a delivery driver, struggled despite working incredibly hard. This early experience created his first success trigger, the recognition that systems, not just effort, determine outcomes. When Schultz first encountered Starbucks as a small coffee shop in Seattle, he recognized something beyond the quality of the coffee. He saw a system waiting to be unleashed. His success trigger activated when he realized that the Italian coffee bar experience could be replicated systematically across America. But what's particularly instructive about Schultz's story is how he consciously documented and activated his success triggers. He noticed that his best ideas and most effective decisions came during early morning walks. Instead of treating this as coincidence, he turned it into a deliberate practice. Every major Starbucks innovation, From the introduction of healthcare for part-time employees to the development of the Frappuccino, was conceived during these morning walking sessions. Schultz also recognized that his peak performance correlated with direct customer interaction. He made it a point to visit at least 25 Starbucks stores every week, even as CEO. This wasn't just about inspection, it was about actively triggering the state of mind that led to his best strategic thinking. Perhaps most importantly, Schultz identified what he called his purpose trigger, connecting business decisions to personal meaning. Every major initiative had to pass what he termed the My Father test. Would this decision create the kind of company where his father would have been treated with dignity as an employee? By systematically identifying and activating these triggers, Schultz transformed a local coffee shop into a company with over 30,000 stores worldwide. He didn't just build a business. He created a repeatable system for success by understanding and leveraging his personal success triggers. The power of success triggers lies in their specificity to you. What activates peak performance in one person might be irrelevant for another. The key is learning to decode your personal success pattern. Emma's transformation from struggling real estate agent to top performer illustrates how anyone can identify and activate their unique success triggers. After 6 months of mediocre results, Emma was close to quitting the industry. Her breakthrough came when she decided to analyze her few successful sales with the same detail she applied to her failures. She created what she called a success journal, documenting every detail of her successful transactions. At first, the exercise seemed pointless, until patterns began emerging. She noticed that all her sales had occurred after in-person meetings rather than phone calls. Her success rate doubled when appointments were scheduled before noon. But the most surprising trigger she discovered was environmental. Her closing rate was significantly higher when she arrived at properties 30 minutes early and played classical music while preparing the space. This wasn't just about creating ambiance. The combination of early arrival and music triggered a state of confident calm that clients could sense. Emma began deliberately activating these triggers before every showing. She restructured her schedule to prioritize morning appointments. She created a pre-showing ritual that included her success-triggering music. Most importantly, she stopped treating these elements as superstition and recognized them as crucial components of her success system. The results were remarkable. Within 3 months of implementing her success trigger system, Emma's sales increased by 340%. Within a year, she was her agency's top performer. The biggest revelation, she later explained, wasn't learning new sales techniques. It was realizing that success leaves clues, and those clues are waiting to be discovered in our own experience. Your brain has already created a perfect record of your success conditions. Every achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of excellence contains the exact blueprint for replicating that success. The key is learning to read this blueprint. Think about your most recent achievement. What were you wearing? What time of day was it? What had you eaten? Who was around you? What was your physical state? Your emotional state? These aren't random details. They're potential triggers waiting to be activated. The power of success triggers lies in their compound effect. While any single trigger might have a modest impact, the right combination creates an unstoppable success cascade. This is why simply copying someone else's morning routine or productivity system often fails. You need to identify the specific trigger combination that works for you. Chapter 14. The Impact Multiplier. Expanding your circle of influence. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself 20 years from now. Not just your appearance or circumstances, but the wake you've left behind. How many lives have you touched? How many people carry forward the lessons you've shared, the examples you've set, the changes you've inspired? Now open your eyes and feel the weight of that gap, the distance between your current impact and the ripples you could create across generations. Most people underestimate their potential for impact by orders of magnitude. They see their sphere of influence as fixed, limited to their immediate circle of family, friends, and colleagues. But influence, like compound interest, grows exponentially when properly understood and intentionally directed. Your brain is already wired for impact. It's part of our evolutionary heritage. Humans survived and thrived not through individual excellence alone, but through our ability to share knowledge, inspire action, and create lasting change in our communities. This capacity for influence isn't just a skill. It's embedded in your neural architecture, waiting to be activated. When you understand the science of influence, you realize that every interaction carries the potential for exponential impact. Each conversation, each example you set, each piece of knowledge you share, creates ripples that extend far beyond your immediate reach. These ripples don't just travel outward, they compound, creating waves of change that can transform communities, industries, and even societies. Muhammad Yunus's journey from economics professor to Nobel Peace Prize winner illustrates the extraordinary power of understanding and activating your impact potential. In 1976, while teaching at Chittagong University in Bangladesh, Yunus made a simple observation. Local craftswomen were trapped in poverty because they couldn't access small loans to buy raw materials. Traditional banks wouldn't lend to them because they were considered too risky. Instead of simply noting this problem or writing an academic paper about it, Yunus took action. He lent $27 of his own money to 42 women. This tiny act, helping a handful of people with less money than most people spend on dinner, became the seed of a global revolution in banking and poverty alleviation. What's particularly instructive about Yunus's story is how he multiplied his impact. He didn't try to help every poor person himself. Instead, he created a system, microfinance, that could be replicated and scaled. He understood that true impact comes not from what you can do alone, but from creating mechanisms that empower others to create change. Yunus faced intense skepticism from traditional bankers who insisted his model would fail. But he understood something fundamental about human nature and impact. When you combine practical solutions with trust in people's potential, you create self-reinforcing cycles of positive change. The women he lent to didn't just repay their loans. They used their profits to send their children to school, improve their communities, and help others start businesses. The Grameen Bank, which grew from that initial $27 loan, has now disbursed over $24 billion in microloans, primarily to women, helping millions escape poverty. But even these numbers understate Yunus's true impact. His model has been replicated by thousands of organizations worldwide, creating a multiplier effect that has transformed hundreds of millions of lives. What made Yunus's impact so profound wasn't just his idea. It was his understanding of how to create self-sustaining cycles of positive change. He didn't just solve a problem. He created a system that empowered others to solve problems. This is the essence of exponential impact. The principles behind Yunus's success can be applied in any context where you want to expand your influence and create lasting change. It starts with recognizing that your potential for impact is far greater than your direct reach, and that the key to multiplication is creating systems and examples that others can follow and adapt. Understanding this multiplier effect transforms how you approach every interaction and opportunity. Each conversation becomes a chance to plant seeds that might grow into forests. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to create solutions that others can learn from and build upon. James's transformation from focus practitioner to healthcare catalyst demonstrates how anyone can activate their impact multiplier. As a successful ophthalmologist in Seattle, James was already making a difference in his patients' lives. But something nagged at him. The knowledge that for every patient he helped, countless others lacked access to basic eye care. Initially, James considered traditional approaches to expanding his impact, working longer hours, opening additional clinics, or volunteering at free clinics. But he realized these linear solutions wouldn't create the exponential impact he envisioned. His breakthrough came when he shifted his focus from direct service to system change. Instead of trying to see more patients himself, he developed a streamlined training program for primary care providers to identify and address common eye problems. What started as a simple workshop for local clinics evolved into a comprehensive certification program that equipped healthcare providers with the skills to deliver basic eye care in underserved communities. James's impact multiplied dramatically. Within 3 years, his training program had certified over 200 healthcare providers, each serving hundreds of patients annually. But the multiplication didn't stop there. His most successful trainees began training others, creating a cascade effect that expanded far beyond his original reach. The key to James's success wasn't just in creating a training program, it was in understanding how to structure it for maximum multiplication. He focused on making the training practical and adaptable, allowing providers to implement it within their existing practices. He created simple but effective protocols that could be easily taught and remembered. Most importantly, he built in mechanisms for his trainees to become trainers themselves. This shift from direct impact to enabled impact is crucial for anyone looking to multiply their influence. It requires moving beyond the immediate satisfaction of helping others directly to the broader vision of creating systems and tools that empower others to create change. Your brain is already equipped with the neural machinery for this kind of exponential impact. When you teach someone a skill or share an insight, your brain releases neurochemicals that reinforce not just the learning, but the teaching process itself. This biological reward system evolved to encourage knowledge sharing and influence multiplication. The key is learning to activate these natural impact multipliers intentionally. Start by examining your existing sphere of influence, not just who you can reach directly, but who those people might reach in turn. Look for opportunities to transform individual solutions into repeatable systems. Focus on creating tools and approaches that others can easily adopt and share. Chapter 15. The Integration Effect, Your Personal Control Panel. Imagine your mind as a sophisticated control panel filled with switches, dials, and buttons you've been discovering throughout this journey. Each lever represents a neural pathway you've learned to activate, each dial a level of performance you can now adjust at will. What was once a mysterious array of controls is now your personal command center. The switches for focus, resilience, momentum, and impact are no longer hidden behind panels of self-doubt. They're at your fingertips, waiting for your confident touch. Your brain is already wired for this integration. Just as a symphony conductor doesn't think about each individual instrument, but rather orchestrates them into a harmonious whole, your mind has the natural capacity to blend all these tools into a seamless operating system. The challenge isn't in learning new techniques, it's in bringing together everything you already know into a unified force. This integration isn't just about collecting tools. It's about creating a personal operating system that responds automatically to any situation. Think of it like learning to drive. At first, each action requires conscious thought. Check mirrors, signal, brake, accelerate. But with practice, these individual actions merge into fluid motion. Your mind can achieve the same fluid mastery with psychological tools. Andrea Bocelli's journey illustrates the extraordinary power of mental integration. Losing his sight completely at age 12 didn't end his dreams. It catalyzed them. Bocelli's brain, faced with the loss of visual input, began a remarkable process of sensory and mental integration that would eventually help him become one of the world's most celebrated tenors. What's particularly instructive about Bocelli's story isn't just his resilience in the face of blindness, but how he systematically integrated different mental capabilities to create something greater than the sum of its parts. He developed an extraordinary ability to sense acoustic spaces through subtle air pressure changes on his skin. He learned to read music in Braille with one hand, while simultaneously creating the mental interpretation of the piece with another part of his brain. He integrated his breathing techniques with emotional expression in ways that sighted singers often struggle to achieve. Bocelli didn't just compensate for his blindness. He transformed it into a catalyst for developing superior integration of his remaining senses and mental capabilities. This integration allowed him to perceive and create music in ways that transcended traditional limitations. When he performs, he's not just singing, he's orchestrating a complex symphony of sensory information, emotional expression, and technical mastery. What makes his story particularly relevant is how he approached this integration systematically. Rather than trying to force immediate mastery, he developed each capability separately before carefully weaving them together. He worked on pitch control independently of breath control, emotional expression separately from technical execution, only bringing them together once each element was stable. This methodical approach to integration mirrors the journey you've been on through this audiobook. You've developed individual tools and techniques. Now it's time to weave them into your personal symphony of success. Just as Bocelli created a unique way of experiencing and creating music by integrating his enhanced capabilities, you can create a unique operating system by integrating your enhanced mental tools. The key to successful integration lies in understanding that these tools aren't separate techniques to be applied one at a time. They're complementary forces that can amplify each other. Your focus switch doesn't operate in isolation from your momentum dial. Your resilience capacity interplays with your impact multiplier. When properly integrated, these tools create a self-reinforcing system of excellence. Liam's journey from middle management to C-suite executive demonstrates how this integration works in practice. After years of applying various leadership techniques and personal development tools with moderate success, he realized he was treating each skill as a separate tool rather than parts of an integrated system. His breakthrough came when he started mapping how different mental tools could work together. Instead of just using his focus techniques for deep work, he combined them with his energy management system to identify optimal times for different types of tasks. He integrated his resilience framework with his success triggers, creating a feedback loop that turned setbacks into automatic learning opportunities. The most powerful shift came when he stopped thinking about individual techniques and started viewing them as part of his personal operating system. When facing a challenge, he no longer had to consciously decide which tool to use. His integrated approach automatically deployed the right combination of mental resources. The results were transformative. Within 18 months, Liam had ascended to the C-suite, but more importantly, he had developed an effortless command of his mental resources. Challenges that once required conscious coping strategies now triggered automatic, integrated responses. This integration didn't happen overnight. Liam started by mapping his existing tools and identifying natural connections between them. He practiced combining two tools at a time before attempting more complex integrations. Most importantly, he personalized the process to match his specific strengths and challenges. Your brain is already primed for this kind of integration. When you learn to ride a bicycle, your brain doesn't store balance, pedaling, and steering as separate skills. It creates an integrated neural pattern that combines all these elements. The same principle applies to psychological tools. Through conscious practice, you can weave your mental capabilities into natural, automatic responses. The key is to start with conscious connections. Look for natural pairings between the tools you've developed. How can your focus techniques enhance your resilience practice? How might your energy management system amplify your impact strategies? These connections form the foundation of your integrated operating system. Your challenge now is to create this integration blueprint. Take 30 minutes to map out your personal mastery manifesto. Start with your 3 strongest mental tools and identify specific ways they could work together. Don't worry about perfection. This is a living document that will evolve with your practice. The key is to begin seeing these tools not as separate techniques, but as parts of your unified operating system. Conclusion. You stand at a different threshold now. Not the edge of limitation where this journey began, but the boundary between mastery and legacy. The mental control panel that once seemed impossibly complex now responds to your confident touch. Each switch, dial, and button represents not just a technique learned, but a fundamental shift in how your mind operates. But your journey is uniquely yours. The specific combination of switches you've mastered, the particular ways you've learned to redirect your mental energy, the unique patterns you've identified in your success triggers, these form a personal operating system that nobody else can replicate exactly. This individuality is your strength. The real power of this transformation lies not just in what you can achieve personally, but in how your mastery influences those around you. When you operate from a place of mental mastery, it changes how people respond to you. Your confidence becomes contagious, your clarity inspires others to seek their own, and your achievements demonstrate what's possible when someone takes control of their mental switches. This is the true potential of your journey, the ability to create ripple effects that transform not just your life, but the lives of those around you. Every time you demonstrate what's possible through mental mastery, you give others permission to explore their own potential. Every success you achieve using these tools creates a blueprint that others can follow. The journey ahead is both exciting and demanding. It will challenge you to apply these tools in bigger ways, to tackle larger obstacles, to create more significant impact. But you're ready for this challenge. Every mental switch you've mastered, every pattern you've redirected, every success trigger you've activated has prepared you for this moment. The time for learning is complete. The time for impact is now. Take these tools, this mastery, this transformed way of operating, and use them to create ripples that will transform not just your life, but the lives of everyone you touch. Your greatest achievements don't lie in what you've learned. They lie in what you'll do with that learning. The future is waiting for people who know how to master their mental switches. It's waiting for you. Thank you for listening and for investing in yourself. I believe in you. Your potential is endless. Now, go out there and create the life you deserve.